All right, hi everyone. I hope you guys are doing well. So as I said, I'm going to be trying to get these videos up earlier so that you have as much flexibility as possible to watch these videos whenever you get a chance. So we have the video already posted for Chapter 11. You can find that on Canvas. This video is going to focus on Chapter 12. That's going to be related to issues about work, leisure, and retirement. So a few announcements here. We do have Activity 9 that's going to be due by 5 p.m. on March 27th. And then we will have Exam 3 coming up. It's going to be released on March 30th, and it's going to close on April 6th. So this is a week later than we had planned because of the extended spring break situation. But it's still going to open on Monday at noon and close the next Monday at noon. Now, if you're a person who enjoys taking exams at nighttime, that's great. That's perfectly fine. Just because it's due at noon on a Monday does not mean you have to take it at 11 o'clock on a Monday. If you like to take things in the evening, you can take it at any point during that week that it's open, okay? So Exam 3 is going to have the same format as Exams 1 and 2. Now, one thing that I do want to announce, make sure that you're paying attention to this. As I said, I already had videos recorded for the rest of the semester, so I'm going to use those. But at some point, likely in the review videos, I probably said something like, make sure that you're making your appointment to take Exam 4 with a proctor, okay? If you hear that, disregard that. That was the original plan. That was the plan at the time that I recorded that. But because of, well, everything that's going on and with campus not being accessible right now for proctored exams, then we're going to be doing an authentication video instead of the proctored exam. And I'll get out information on that soon, but I will be posting a review video for Exam 3, and if at some point it says, make sure you have an appointment to take Exam 4 with the proctor, just ignore that, okay? Let me know if you have any questions about that, okay? So I'm going to be posting this video. I'm also going to be posting a review video, and then you'll have everything that you need for Exam 3, okay? So let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, we're going to jump into lecture. Alright, so as I said, today we're going to be talking about some issues that are related to work, leisure, and retirement. This may feel especially relevant to you as you are getting ready to start your career, finishing up training, thinking about what you might be wanting to do for the rest of your life. So, I think if you ask most people why they work, the answer is usually for a paycheck. And I think the majority of us, if we were to win the lottery, would probably never go back to work. Having said that, though, people don't just go to work for a paycheck. Sometimes people feel like they find meaning in their work, which is an ideal situation, I suppose. The idea that your work helps you to be the best version of yourself. And so you have some goal for yourself that you are meeting through your career. And so when it talks about a meaning, mission, fit, you have your view of what kind of work you want to do and what kinds of goals you want to meet. And if this fits well with what the workplace wants, the people that you're working for, then that is an ideal situation. That will probably lead to a person staying in the same career, staying in the same workplace perhaps, and then also not just staying there, but putting their best effort in and being satisfied with their job. So obviously we would hope that we would find some meaning in our work besides just a paycheck. Not that there is anything wrong with going in and working hard to provide for yourself and for your family, even if it's not a career that you love, but we wish that people would love their careers. And perhaps one thing that might help a person enjoy their career is if there's a good match with their abilities and interests and personalities to the type of job that they are pursuing. So I believe we briefly mentioned these before, the idea that there are different personality types and that certain personality types seem to go well with certain careers. And so this might be something where you take surveys online or you go talk to a counselor about what kinds of jobs might be a good fit for you. Sometimes it's difficult to do this if you don't know much about the career. Maybe there's a stereotype, for example, of what a psychologist does. And maybe we don't actually know that much about it. We just know the stereotype, what's on TV, what's in the movies. So we do our best to try to imagine what it would be like to be in this career and see if we think that would be a good fit for our personality. So a couple of ways that this is related to gender, and gender is going to come up a few times throughout today's lecture. It talks about women being more likely to have certain personality types, and so therefore there may be certain careers that seem to be natural matches for women because of their personality. So for example, women perhaps being more social might be better in situations where they're interacting with other people. Women tend to have a little bit higher emotional intelligence, understanding their own emotions and the emotions of other people. Women tend to do better with things like nonverbal communication. So perhaps because of these abilities and personality styles, there might be some careers that seem to be better suited to some women. But then it is important to note that not all women have the same abilities or personality, as well as men also have differences in abilities and personality. One thing that we see is that men and women who are in the same field often have similar personality types. So a male doctor and a female doctor may have different gender, but they have the same style of personality usually on average. And so perhaps something about your personality is what drew you towards that career, not gender, but personality. More on gender coming up. So there are different theories about what makes for a good match between yourself and your career, and some theories take into account all 6 of these, some maybe take into account only a few of these. We're going to see on the next slide that there seems to be research to support the importance of all 6 of these. Basically, you will be happier in your career when you take into account these variables. So first of all, self-efficacy, which is your perceived ability. Note that this is perceived. This is your perception of your ability. And sometimes we're not always accurate. Sometimes we think that we have abilities that we don't have. Or maybe we think that the abilities that we do have are not as good as they truly are. So our perceptions can be wrong, but we have perceived ability. So for example, you're not going to pursue a career that involves a lot of math if you feel like you don't have good math skills. So if you feel like you don't have that ability, you're probably not going to pursue it. So self-efficacy, do I think I have the skills that are needed? Also, do I think I will be successful in this career? Now, there's some overlap between these variables, but they're also distinct in some ways. Of course, the ability level that you have is going to impact whether or not you can be successful, but that's not the only thing that's going to impact whether or not you're going to be successful. One thing you might be thinking about is there some kind of discrimination? We're going to talk later about some issues that women face in the workplace, but do you feel like there's something here that might keep you from being successful, which will also come back up when we talk about barriers? So do I have what it takes to be successful in this career? Do I think that I can be successful based on the environment? Is this something I like to do? There may be skills that you have, you're really good at, but that doesn't mean you want to do it for a living. You may be really great at selling something, perhaps. Maybe you can convince anyone of anything, but that doesn't mean you want to be a salesman, necessarily. Just because you have the ability doesn't mean you necessarily want to do it forever. You're not interested in it. Also, what are your goals for yourself? What kind of career do you want, but also what kind of personal life do you want? And do you think that this particular career path will help you meet your personal goals? Even if it's something that you like and something that you're good at, if you think that it's going to take you away from your family more than you want it to, or if you think this is something that is going to prevent you from meeting your personal goals, feeling fulfilled, you probably won't take that job. And then also taking into account the environment here. So, for example, things to think about in the environment. Do I have the money it takes to pay the tuition to get the training that I need for this career? Do I have the time to go back to school or to get the training that I need? Will the people around me support me and help me through this? Sometimes people, unfortunately, discourage you from pursuing a certain career. Maybe they think that you shouldn't have that kind of job, or they don't want you to go back to school, or that kind of thing. So you also take into account whether or not the environment is going to help you. So, as I said, all 6 of these variables seem to play a role in people's decisions about careers and their job satisfaction. And maybe for you, there are some variables that are more important than others. And of course, they do overlap with each other. One thing that we see is that self-efficacy is huge. It's about your perceived ability. Do you think you can possess the skills necessary to be good at this job? And if you don't think that you can, then you probably won't pursue it. So then one thing to think about here is that, for example, someone who's depressed may have very low self-esteem, may have very low self-efficacy, and then therefore may not pursue certain careers that they could be successful in just because they have very low self-esteem and don't think that they can be successful. Also, there is some research to suggest that men are more likely to list several different careers that they think they could be successful in, they think they do have the skills for, and women are less likely to list as many careers. They feel like maybe there's only a few jobs that they could be successful in. So something to keep in mind there. As I've been referring to, stereotypes, other external factors can definitely affect what we think about ourselves and about our careers. So perhaps we've been told that there's something about us that's not a good match for that particular career. We start listening to what other people are saying, and therefore that can really impact what we think about ourselves and whether or not we pursue that job. So as you go through your career, there are certain stages that you go through, and essentially these stages happen pretty much in this order, although it might vary slightly, but for the most part in this order. The amount of time that you spend in each stage may vary from person to person, but you go through these stages. First of all, we have implementation, where we're trying out different careers, maybe doing some part-time jobs or getting some training in a particular field. We're trying out different jobs and trying to find the right one. Once we establish ourselves in a career, then we perhaps try to advance in that career. We're working hard, we're trying to get a promotion, trying to get paid more. And then at a certain point you reach this maintenance stage where perhaps you are comfortable where you are, you're not trying to advance through the company ladder, you're just going to stay where you are. And then things slow down. Right, so maybe we're working a little bit less, we're taking on fewer projects, perhaps even cutting down to working part-time, that kind of thing, leading up to retirement. Of course, one thing to think about, and you'll see this, is that sometimes people leave one career and then retrain and enter a different career, and so you could go through this process multiple times. So during young adulthood, perhaps you are going through some of these earlier stages where you're trying to implement, you're trying to find a job that works for you. And if you're in college, maybe you're taking different classes with different majors, trying to find something that seems to match your personality and your goals and your self-efficacy. So you're trying out jobs. Once you make the choice here, you feel like you kind of stabilize. This is my major, this is my career, this is the kind of job that I want to do, and get an entry-level position there. And then you try to, during this consolidation phase, advance up that career ladder, trying to perhaps get promotions, extra pay, etc. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that different people have different goals. And so some people may be very career focused, and so they're trying to advance up this career ladder, but then there may be people who are just trying to work to earn a paycheck, but their primary focus is at home, and so then perhaps they're not necessarily looking for advancement. They're happy where they are, because sometimes when you advance up the career ladder, that also adds additional responsibilities that can interfere with family relationships, social life, etc. So just something to note, not everyone is always trying to advance up the career ladder here. Alright, so basically we have these stages that are going on as we are trying to choose a career, maintain that career, and then wrap that career up. And this kind of goes along with these tasks that we've been talking about trying to implement a career, and then trying to maintain it, trying to move up the ladder. So exploratory stage is from around age 15 to 24. Of course, these ages could vary. Sometimes people might start thinking about what kind of job they want to do a little bit earlier, but usually somewhere around 15 or 16, people are thinking about, what do I want to do when I graduate high school? What kind of major might I be interested in? Am I going to go to college at all? What kind of career might be a good match for me? This is where we might also see adolescents getting part-time jobs, getting some experience, as well as getting a paycheck. And then you go to college, if you're going to go to college, or you receive some kind of training, or you enter the workforce, and so you're still maybe trying out different careers, different ideas as you go through what we might call emerging adulthood. And then after that, you try to find a job, settle down, become established in your career. And then for the next 20-ish years, you're working hard, trying to perhaps build up some benefits, trying to improve your standing in the company. Usually as people get older, they become more settled into their career, kind of maintenance things, not necessarily retraining or learning new things or trying to improve their position, just kind of steady in their career. And then after that, you have a decline as people get older and get closer to retirement. Now, different people retire at different ages, so there are lots of different factors to consider here. As we talk about older individuals in our upcoming lectures, then we'll see that there are lots of different reasons for retirement and how it can look different for different people. But you typically see a decline in career as people get older. Now, one thing to note is that sometimes people do retrain and enter into the workforce in a different career. And so you can recycle through these tasks and these stages. Perhaps a person might be in their 40s, but they've gone back to school and they're retraining and they're going to go back into implementing and that task. So this is something that can definitely be a cycle, which is something that could be by choice or something that someone might have to do if they have a hard time finding a job, right? So, what about our expectations? Expectations are powerful things. We often get what we expect out of life. It talks about your self-concept and your self-efficacy playing an important role in what you expect out of your career. Do you have high self-esteem? Do you consider yourself an intelligent person, a hardworking person, a person who has the skills that are necessary to be successful? If so, you will probably have high expectations for your job. But then sometimes people don't have high expectations. They don't expect things to be a certain way. They just expect to get a paycheck. Now, you can imagine that these beliefs are going to perhaps contribute to things like burnout, which we'll talk about coming up. It mentions a reality shock here, learning in the classroom, not necessarily translating into real-world job situations. So a few things to think about here. For one, there are some things that just can't be replicated in the classroom. If you think about from a psychology standpoint, it's an entirely different thing to lecture about psychological disorders and about therapy, even in a graduate setting. Even in grad school, learning about different types of assessments and learning about different types of therapies, that is entirely different from sitting in a clinic across from a person in distress and you're expected to be the one to help them. And so it may be a bit of a shock when you realize that the information that you learned in the classroom may not be enough. You need more on-the-job training to be able to be successful. But something else to consider here is that perhaps this is something we need to look into in our education system. There's a lot of research to suggest that college graduates often have to have remedial training to be able to be successful. Maybe there are certain aspects that we're not including enough emphasis on in our education up until college graduation, that we might not be teaching the right skills so that people are prepared for careers after college. All right. Are we satisfied with our jobs? Do we have a positive feeling about our jobs? Lots of things that play a role in whether or not you feel satisfied with your job, and part of it might depend on your age. So when it talks about intrinsic versus extrinsic rewards, an extrinsic reward is primarily a paycheck, but basically what you're saying is there is something outside of myself that is motivating my work. So that could be a paycheck, that could be health insurance, whatever the case may be. Versus an intrinsic reward where I'm doing it because of an internal desire. Something that I really want to do is leading me to work here to have this job. So it talks about middle-aged individuals being more satisfied with intrinsic rewards. So looking for something personally meaningful in their job, not just a paycheck, but helping them feel like they are making a positive difference or they're reaching some kind of goal for themselves. I think younger individuals might be more excited about the paycheck, like, hey, we've been training, we've been working hard, we need this paycheck because we have student loans we need to pay off, right? I understand that. But then as you get older, perhaps being more concerned with the intrinsic rewards. So then it also has to do with what's going on in your personal life. So family responsibilities, if you get married and you have kids, that is certainly something that can be stressful when you're combining that with trying to work. But when it talks about family responsibilities, it might not just be about having kids, but also maybe later in life you're also trying to take care of your own parents or other family members that are getting older. And so feeling like you have a good balance between your work life and your home life is a very important part of job satisfaction. Now, we know that not everyone loves their jobs, and a few things that can be related to not loving your job: alienation, burnout, obsessive passion. All right, so with alienation, feeling like your work is meaningless, we talked about as people get older, they're more likely to want those intrinsic rewards. They're wanting their work to be meaningful for them. It's not just about getting a paycheck. Maybe you've been getting a paycheck for a while. It just doesn't feel like enough. Like you need something that gets you out of bed in the morning. And so if you feel like your work is meaningless, you're not actually helping anyone, you're not helping yourself, then you can see that that could lead to a person feeling alienated, kind of cut off from the life that they wanted to have, the meaning that they were hoping to find. And so it may be the case that your career truly is meaningless, and then you have to try to find other ways to find meaning in your life. Or it could be that perhaps you can find meaning in the career that you're in now. Some people choose to go back and retrain and take on a different career that they feel like has more meaning to it. Burnout is something that's going to happen regardless of what field you're in. Basically, you feel like you've been working too hard for too long and you just don't have it left. You don't have any more left. And you can get burnout in school. I understand. I remember being in school. You can feel exploited and depleted, and I've got nothing left and I can't do this anymore. One thing to think about here is, since this is a psychology class, if you're going to be a psychologist, you may have this where you feel like you would burn out on listening to other people's struggles and feeling like maybe you feel like you're not effective. You feel like you are personally struggling psychologically, and that makes it hard for you to help other people who are struggling psychologically. Let me encourage you, if you are considering a career in psychology or counseling, that you take care of yourself. This is a really good time for you to learn sleeping habits and eating habits and self-care before you go on to career or go on to graduate school. It's very important for you to learn how to take care of yourself to try to reduce this feeling of burnout, right? When it comes to passion, passion sounds like a good thing, and it can be a good thing if there's a harmony between your work and your home life. But this obsessive passion happens when people essentially become workaholics. So when you are so obsessed with your work that you can't leave it at work, that you bring it home with you, and that it maybe makes it difficult for you to relax, to enjoy yourself, to sleep at night. Now, one thing to think about here, in our individualistic culture, where we are very competitive, I think we have a tendency here to not only be workaholics, but also reinforce other people for being workaholics. And that's so great how hard you work and how many promotions you've had, and perhaps we miss the fact that there are other things in life that are as important, if not more important, than work. So something to keep in mind. Now, what about gender differences in the workplace? First of all, it talks about 47% of the workforce is female. So we have almost as many women working as we do men working, and you're going to see, especially for minority individuals, women are more likely to be working than not working. So different things to think about here. In the past, it was considered typical for a husband to work and a wife to stay home and take care of the kids. And today, that's not as much the case. We often have women working outside of the home. And there are lots of different reasons why this might be, but one very practical reason is that it is difficult today to have a family and pay the bills with one salary. So the fact that women are working outside of the home, though, might create some stresses on women and families that we need to consider. One thing is that women working outside of the home more might still be expected to have stereotypically women's jobs, right? So when you think about a woman, maybe you think about being an elementary school teacher, or you think about a woman being a nurse or that kind of thing. But certainly there are some non-traditional occupations. We don't think about women being engineers or math professors or firefighters, perhaps. One thing that we see is that men on a survey report that they would be more comfortable dating women who work in traditional settings. Now, one thing I want to say is this is on a survey, this is men on average, this doesn't say anything about any one particular man, but it does tell us something about what society thinks about women in the workplace. So women might have some extra challenges to face because oftentimes they might feel like a workplace supports more masculine values. What this means, when you ask women what's important to them, women are more likely to say close relationships, cooperation, working together, depending on each other to meet our goals. Men, on the other hand, tend to be a little bit more individualistic, so they want to work one-on-one, independent, and perhaps not working together, more of a competition sort of thing. So then women might feel like workplaces are too competitive, perhaps, and then also alienating. Women might be a little bit more likely to say that they feel like their jobs lack meaning for them, that they feel like perhaps because of this individualistic viewpoint that we don't have the relationships with other people that can make work seem a little bit more alienating. But then also in the workplace, there are certain issues that can come up for women that might not be issues for men. It talks here about gender discrimination. So prejudice is an attitude about someone based on a group membership, which could be anything. It could be race, it could be gender, it could be age, it could be appearance, any number of things. Basically, we put people in groups and we have an attitude about them based on their group membership. So discrimination is a part of that attitude, and discrimination is the behavioral part. So you are treating someone differently based on group membership. So with gender discrimination, we are treating someone differently because they are a man or a woman. So there may be times when women in particular are denied a job because they are a woman. And so there are safeguards in place to try to prevent this, but of course it still happens. But then for women who are in the workplace, we do have this notion of the glass ceiling and the glass cliff. So as far as the glass ceiling goes, it's the idea that it's a glass ceiling, so it's transparent, it's hard to see. We don't necessarily see it there, but that there is a limit to how far women can rise in the ranks before we kind of maintain where we are and can't go any further. And so perhaps we're comfortable with women at a certain level of management, but we're not going to go any higher than that. So that's the idea of the glass ceiling. Of course, women do sometimes break through the glass ceiling and are more likely then, after they do, to be in positions of power. But one thing that we see beyond the glass ceiling, if a woman does advance beyond what is expected of her, then this glass cliff situation is that women might be put into a dangerous position. For example, women might be put into a position where they cannot be successful. And one thing that's often talked about here is that women are expected to have better relational skills. Therefore, we might put a woman in charge of solving a workplace situation that they cannot be successful in, that this workplace situation has gone on too long, it's become a really toxic situation, but we expect women, because they're more relational, to be able to fix it. And so then perhaps women are set up to fail because they're put into these very precarious positions. Of course, when you think about women in the workplace, one thing to note is that women are paid on average 80% of what men are paid, even if they're in the same position, have the same supervisor, have the same training, or even maybe more training. This is something that we are working on, but is still the case in a lot of situations. But we're not just thinking about gender discrimination, we're also thinking about age discrimination. So we're treating people differently based on their age. Now, I think we all have stereotypes. So stereotype is another aspect of prejudice that's cognitive, so it's the beliefs that we have. I think we all have beliefs about people based on their age. Maybe we look at teenagers and say, well, you must be immature, you must make poor decisions, that kind of thing. We look at older people and think, well, you must be wise and experienced. But this is not always the case. So age discrimination is that behavioral component where a person is not given a job or a promotion based on age. Now, this could be on either end of the spectrum. This could be that we don't want to promote someone or hire someone because we think they're too young, but it could also be someone who we think is too old. And this may be something that is especially a concern because today perhaps things like training in technology and these things are more important than they were. So someone who's older in the workforce who was trained for their career, but now the workforce is changing, more of an emphasis on communication and technology, and so perhaps because of that we view older people as not having the necessary skills. So even if people are not necessarily being denied promotions, they might be given some kind of incentive to retire with the idea that they could then replace them with someone who's had newer training. So what we might see then is that people might then leave their job and then seek out a new job somewhere else because they're not satisfied with something going on in the workplace. But when it talks about boomerang employees, sometimes people quit a particular job and then come back. Maybe it's because they find that the grass was not really greener on the other side and that the other careers out there were also not satisfying, but it could also be that they were trying to find something elsewhere and just weren't able to do it and therefore had to go back to their earlier job. Why do people leave their jobs? Maybe they feel like their work is meaningless. Maybe they want something that's a better match for their life right now, whether that be having a family or taking care of older parents, that kind of thing. But it could also be that a person feels like they have reached a point where they're not going to be able to advance anymore. Promotions, opportunities are not there for them. So we could call this a career plateau. Basically, a person says, I've gone as far as I can go in this particular career, but I'm not ready to stop advancing. And if I can't advance in this career, then I'm going to need to go back and get some training and enter into a different career. So we traditionally think of college as being individuals between ages 18 and 22 or 23, but what we're seeing now is we have more older individuals coming back to college, retraining, seeking new careers. Even if you stay in the same career, though, you still need to continue to learn. I have learned a lot since I left grad school because I'm teaching, and so I need to be constantly reading new research and learning new things so that I can be giving you guys the latest information. So just because you finish your educational career doesn't mean you ever stop learning. You have to continue to train to stay relevant in the workforce. So when it talks about occupational insecurity, sometimes people go back and train for a new career because they don't have another option. Because perhaps they've lost their job or they feel like their job is insecure, they could potentially lose it. So certainly there are times when the economic conditions are not great, and then because of that we might have large numbers of people that are seeking new careers, going back to school, that kind of thing. If a person loses their job, you can see how this could create a whole host of problems. Financially, of course, but this can cause medical issues if they lose their health insurance. But also psychologically, this can be associated with depression and anxiety and substance use and a lot of other negative things. So we want to help people be able to cope with losing their job. A couple of different things. It talks about emotion-focused coping, trying to make yourself feel better. This often involves blaming the people at your work. This often involves telling yourself you weren't happy there, you were never going to be happy there, this was the best thing for you, and you're focusing on your feelings, or perhaps entirely denying your feelings. I don't care that I lost my job, I'm not upset at all. Focusing on your feelings is good for a short period of time, but you don't want to stay here too long because this might then make it harder for you to pursue a new career. So problem-focused coping, deal with your emotions at first, take a little bit of time for that, but then trying to figure out what I need to do now, moving forward, focusing on that, setting goals for yourself about doing some research today, applying for this job, maybe signing up for these classes, giving yourself some goals so that you can feel like you're working towards a solution instead of just focusing on those negative feelings that you might have. So as I said, unemployment is a very stressful thing for your physical and mental health, also your self-esteem, depending on the reason why you lost a job. If you lost a job because of some personal factor that led to you losing the job, obviously that hurts. But then also, if you were working really hard and doing the best that you can and you lost your job anyway, then that might lead to this kind of learned helplessness, like there's nothing I can do. I was doing the best I could and it still didn't work out. So there's obviously a lot of ramifications for our self-esteem. So it is important to have a healthy sense of urgency for most things here. If you feel overly stressed about it, I have to find a job immediately, that will actually reduce your ability to find a job because you'll be so stressed out about it. But then you do need to stress a certain amount. The same is true for anything. When you have a test coming up, if you are overly concerned about the test, I've got to make a perfect grade, I've got to study, then you might become so stressed out that you can't think straight. But also if you say, okay, well, who cares, it'll be fine, I don't need to worry about that, I don't need to study, then your grade may be very poor in the end. So you need to have a healthy sense of urgency about a lot of things. Taking time to, as much as you can, objectively consider what would be the best move, and talking to people that you trust about this as well, taking that into consideration. And as soon as you realize that there's something going on, there's a good chance that this job's not going to work out for me, then trying to start working on that problem sooner rather than later can be really helpful. What about taking care of others? This is something that could be an issue for both men and women, but it's especially true for women because we typically think of women as being the caregivers, the nurturers, not just of their children, but of other dependent family members. So it talks about mothers returning to work after the birth of a baby. One thing to note is that maternity leave is not as high a priority in the United States as it is in other countries. In other countries, you may have months or years even of maternity leave, and we don't have that kind of thing in place here. So there are lots of reasons why a woman might decide to return to work. It may be the case that a woman wants to go back to work because she feels like there's something meaningful in her career, but oftentimes there's also a situation where a woman feels like she has to go back to work to be able to provide financially. So then this creates a lot of stress on a woman who perhaps is working several full-time jobs by the time you take into account taking care of the young ones that she has in her life. So it talks about stage of life and gender affecting ideal working hours. Women may feel like they have less control over their schedules. They need more control over their schedules to be able to take care of children, trying to find good daycare situations or school situations, trying to still breastfeed if that's something that they want to do, pumping milk, that kind of thing. There are a lot of things that mothers have to think about. So one issue is that women may be discriminated against in that they may not be hired or they may be not given as many opportunities to take time off because we're thinking about this dependent situation. So from the employer's perspective, hiring a woman who might have to take multiple maternity leaves, who might then have to be out with sick children, that kind of thing, is something that maybe they don't want to bother with. So oftentimes we see that women are given very strict policies about taking leave, and then therefore that can definitely contribute to stress. If we have a mom and dad both working outside of the home, we still often think about mom being the one to take off of work when kids are sick, that kind of thing. So that can be really stressful. We also see that a large majority of women are caring for their parents, whether that be physically caring for them or financially caring for them. And so they may feel like they need to continue to work so they can provide financially for aging family members, but then also trying to take care of them as well. So what we see is that women who feel like they are caring for several different dependents might then feel more stressed out. This can definitely impact career opportunities if you're having to take time off of work or if you struggle with deadlines because you have a lot of other responsibilities. So we need to provide as much support as possible for women who are in these situations. So, women caregivers. Here's the thing. Sociology has this concept of the second shift. This term, the idea that women often work a full day and then in addition to that also put in a lot of time taking care of household tasks, children, and others. And we tend to have this viewpoint that women are expected to do the majority of the child care, housework, even if both partners are working outside of the home. And therefore, this can create a really stressful set of expectations for women. So when it talks about the problems being ameliorated here or made better, we can make these problems better by providing good support. And this might be education for partners as well, some communication training so we can just be honest and open and be very specific about what we need. And if we can at all possible help women to feel like they have control, if there's some aspect of work they can do from home so that they feel like their schedule is a good match for what's going on in their personal lives. So as I said, women still perform the majority of housework even if they work outside of the home. And so this is one of the most common things that people list as a source of conflict in marriage relationships is who's going to do what. So we have this traditional view of a man working outside of the home and the woman doing all the child care and the housework. So perhaps because of this view, we have created this expectation for women that they just can't live up to if they're going to be working outside of the home as well. So we say that we are happiest, men and women say that they're happiest when we have a good solution for these gender role issues, housework issues. So men say things need to be equitably divided. And what we mean by that is they need to be fair. That's fantastic, but one thing that's a concern is that we might have different views of what it means to be fair. Sometimes if you haven't been up all night with a baby, you don't know how hard it is to be up all night with a baby. So making sure that we have a good realistic view of what is equitable. Women report being happiest when they have husbands who will perform what are traditionally seen as women's chores. One thing I will tell you is my husband does pretty much all the cooking and the dishwashing in our house. And I love that man. He is fantastic. And that definitely would contribute to a lot of stress if there's this disagreement about what chores we will do and won't do. It's kind of like there's something that needs to be done. Whoever is able to do it should pitch in. That kind of thing. So we see very high levels of stress when you have young children at home, and it talks about at least 2 preschool children. So thinking about that, if we are planning on having children in a traditional educational setting, there may still be 5 or 6 years before the children are in school. They're in this preschool age, and if you have multiple kids in this age, then we're trying to pay for daycare, getting kids dropped off and picked up, and it can be very stressful. Therefore, it is best if a couple finds a way to share tasks that makes them both happy. And whatever makes you both happy is great. Whatever makes you feel like things are equitable and fair is great. As long as the people who are involved are happy, that's great. However, in addition to taking care of the kids and meeting the financial responsibilities and meeting the household responsibilities, it is also difficult for couples to find time for each other. This is true of all couples, I think, especially couples who have kids, but especially if both people are working outside of the home. You have to think about then finding childcare for dates. You have to think about the fact that you've already been away from kids at work and now you're going to be away from kids trying to spend time with your partner. It's a very stressful situation, to be sure. Alright, let's talk about something that's a little bit less stressful here for the last few minutes of lecture. Let's talk about leisure activities. So basically when we're talking about leisure, these are things that you do because you enjoy doing them or because they relax you, not things that you have to do. I don't know what kinds of hobbies you have or things that you enjoy doing, and maybe you feel like you don't have time for these. I would encourage you to find time for them. It's good for you to have things that you do just because you enjoy doing them. So what kinds of things you do just for fun depend on a lot of things. It talks about perceived competence. I'm not good at cooking, which may be part of the reason why my husband does all the cooking. I don't perceive myself to be competent, and so cooking is just not a good hobby for me. But something that you feel like you're good at, something that you feel comfortable doing. It talks about psychological comfort here. Some people may be more introverted, and so they might prefer hobbies that are kind of quiet and don't involve as many other people. So thinking about what you're comfortable doing. Also, are you physically able to do it? For example, if you're an older individual, then, ultimate frisbee might not be for you, perhaps. Can I afford to do it? Some hobbies are very expensive. They require traveling. Like, you don't see a lot of people in Mississippi talking about how much they love to go skiing. You see what I mean? Transportation that's involved, education. Do I know how to do this activity, social characteristics, do I fit into this group of people that are doing this activity, etc. You need to find something that you enjoy doing. It talks about depression. Obviously, one of the behavioral treatments for depression is to reinforce people for doing things that they enjoy doing and things that make them feel good about themselves. So that's something that can help treat depression. Dementia, it is good for you to continue to use your brain. And so finding leisure activities that involve some cognitive component, not necessarily just camping out in front of the TV, but doing some kind of game or puzzles or something that involves thinking is really great for you. So as you might imagine, younger individuals are more likely to have a variety of hobbies and more intense activities as perhaps they feel like they have the energy and the health that is necessary to do those things. Middle-aged individuals more likely to be doing family-oriented, so we've got family movie night, family game night. We have something that we all do together perhaps. And maybe we all go for a walk, but usually less physically strenuous. And then, of course, as you get older, then you're looking for something that you can continue to do based on your level of health and cognitive abilities. So the fact, though, that you want to have hobbies and the kinds of hobbies that you're interested in might actually be fairly stable, something that's pretty related to your personality and therefore may not change a lot as you get older. So make sure you're finding time for leisure activities, even if it's just a short amount of time. To be honest, I'm going to say sleep is more important. So if you're in college, if you have to choose between recreation and sleep, I'd say sleep. But if you have time to sleep and do a hobby, fantastic. It's related to mental health. As you can imagine, it helps you relax. It helps improve your mood. Depending on what type of leisure activity, it could strengthen your relationships. Doing a leisure activity that involves taking you away from your family for excessive period of times may not be the best thing. But if you have a leisure activity that involves your friends and family, then that's fantastic. It can also allow you to meet new people and to gain new relationships. So that can be fantastic. Alright, so that is the end of today's lecture. Remember that we do have our exam coming up. So if you have questions as you're preparing, let me know. I will be posting that review video and that practice exam for you as well. And then we will pick up with lecture after exam 3. So let me know if you need anything. You guys have a great day.